I would like to acknowledge that this video is being filmed on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander or First Nations people who may be watching this video today. Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome to my 30 in 30 mid-month check-in. I'm not totally new to manga, but I don't spend a lot of time in manga, so I don't know any of the terms. I'm not going to say anything correctly. I know that going into this. Please just be aware of that. I am trying to read 30 volumes of manga this month to support the 30 in 30 readathon, which is hosted by Shae and Izzy and Ashley and Bree, and I just think it's a really fun way to try different stories in different formats that I don't always read. I will pick up a volume every now and then. My friends keep me relatively well informed, and every now and then there's something that my brain goes, oh, that sounds like fun, let's read that. But this I'm intentionally trying to read through a few things. I caught up on one series, I started a couple of brand new ones, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, to be honest. I have read 15 things so far, so at the moment it is the 12th of November. I've read 15 volumes of manga. I will try and read a few more this weekend as well. I'm just finding it's a bit easier to bulk read quite a few things over the weekend, and then I use it to sort of backfill during the week, particularly if I'm feeling really tired and I don't feel like reading a full-length novel. It's been great just to still have something to read, but usually is relatively faster to get through. Anyway, we're going to talk really briefly about the manga that I have read so far. I have some physical copies and then the rest are digital. I'm trying to mostly read manga that is on KU. There are a few things that I have purchased just because they weren't available on KU, but they sounded like things that I would really like. First up, I read Fire in His Fingertips Volume 3 and Volume 4. This is a series that I did read the first two books of, was it earlier this year or when they first came out, because Shae and Izzy had recommended them. These two are very explicit with on-page sex. So this is Rio? I'm going to mispronounce all of these names, and Suma's relationship, which this one develops into a bit of a love triangle when a former boyfriend or former love interest of Rio turns up in her workplace and is working for her and sort of throws a spanner in the works with her relationship with Suma. Kind of one of the things that I've noticed about manga is occasionally some of the consent issues is questionable. And while I enjoyed these ones, they certainly weren't up there with my favorites of the things that I've read so far for the readathon. Yeah, I'm interested to see where the story goes, but I'm hoping for a little bit more development. If you saw my wrap up last week, you would have seen me talk about Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts Volume 1. This was a recommendation from Shae for me, specifically for my TBR game for this month. The King of Beasts demands a sacrifice every year, and the sacrifice for this year is a girl who has kind of resigned herself to her fate, but she kind of gets put in front of the King of Beasts and she's not terrified of him, and that is very intriguing to him, and he ends up deciding that he wants to keep her, and she discovers that he is not always a beast, that he's only half beast, and there is a lot of court intrigue and politics. It's very Beauty and the Beast in style. The artwork is gorgeous. The heroine does come across as quite young. I didn't necessarily mind that because I thought it was a bit more whimsical than creepy, but just be aware of that because she is navigating the court politics of these creatures who don't really like having humans in their midst. I am going to continue this. I do have a few more volumes that I purchased so that I can continue. Another manga that I read for my monthly challenge was That Wolf Boy Is Mine, Volume 1. This is on KU and it is about a girl who is bullied in her previous school and she goes to a new school. There are some very popular boys who are just beautiful and everyone is in love with them, and she ends up sitting next to one in her first class and he, blurts out that she smells amazing, which is kind of weird, but she kind of just goes with it. And then later on she sees him sleeping under a tree and she goes to wake him up, and as he wakes up he turns into a wolf, which freaks her out. As it turns out, he and his friends are animal shifters and she is the only one who knows their secret. This was cute and fun, and I will definitely be trying the second volume of this because I am intrigued to see where it goes. I also read Princess Jellyfish Volume 1. This was a really interesting one. It's quite a long one. I think there's a bind-up of a couple of volumes in here because I think it was about 400 pages long. The heroine of the story, Tsukimi, is obsessed with jellyfish and she lives in a building with other women who are basically nerds. They are each other's sisterhood and they're, seen as the weird ones in society, but they have decided to reclaim their power in that, and they don't allow men in the building, they don't allow fashionable women in the building, they have their brand and they're sticking to it. Until Tsukimi has an encounter with a very beautiful, very fashionable lady while she is defending the rights of a jellyfish at a pet store. She ends up bringing this woman back to her home and then discovers that she is a he, and there is this friendship that forms between the two of them. This was really fun and cute and had some very interesting commentary, like social commentary going on in it, and I very much appreciated it. I'm not sure if I'll read the next volume for this month, but it's definitely something that I'm keeping on my radar. The next lot of manga I'm not going to talk about in the order that I read it. I'm going to talk about it sequentially in the order of the series. So I picked up Love Nest Volume 1, which I already had purchased at some point. As it turns out, that was not the first book. In fact, it is a spin-off series of 2 other series. So I went back and I read Sayonara Game. This is an MM romance between Arimura and Yusuke. And Arimura hires Yusuke as a tutor for his younger sister. And as a result, they end up spending more time together and there is an attraction between them. There is also a connection because they both played baseball together and Arimura was older than Yusuke. So they're sort of rekindling that acquaintance as well. But it is their relationship and they're exploring what it means to be together, because prior to this, Arimura had not considered himself to be attracted to other men. And by the end of it, they're sort of in the start of their relationship. This is a single volume, but their story continues in Change World 1 and Change World 2. And in this one, their relationship is complicated when a former college friend of Yusuke's, Masato, comes back into his orbit. They're working together, and Masato likes to just cause absolute trouble in their relationship. Their relationship is really tested through this experience as they have to work out, are they actually meant to be together? Do they want to make this work? And so that happens in these 2 volumes, which is a complete story. Then Love Nest has 2 volumes and I've read both of them. Love Nest 2 actually came out this past week, so that was just good timing. Love Nest is Masato's story. And he is kind of in a slump. He's caused a lot of trouble in the previous volumes and he needs a new place to stay, and a friend hooks him up with his apartment and says, I've got a spare room for you, you're welcome to stay here. But there is someone else also living in the apartment. There is a slightly older guy called Asahi who is living there. He's an architect. He's a bit of a slob and likes to push Masato's buttons. Love Nest is the development of their relationship as they work out, can they be something? And I actually really enjoyed Love Nest. I think I probably enjoyed it more than Sayonara Game and Change World. I liked all of them, but I really liked the story arc between Masato and Asahi in Love Nest. So they were really fun to read. I'm glad that I actually just sort of read that complete arc because it was great. I also read Don't Call Me Dirty and Don't Call Me Daddy, both by Guru Canby. And these follow similar characters, but they are their own complete story, so there's only 1 volume for each. So in Don't Call Me Dirty, you have Shuji, who works for his father's liquor store, but also helps support the convenience store next door because there's an old man there who is just aging and is not able to take care of the store properly. So he's kind of doing this double duty. And he meets a homeless man who he calls Hama. And the 2 become friends and then something more, and explores the connotations of the word dirty, both in terms of people using it to describe the homeless population, but also queer people, and sort of breaking down the barriers around that. It was very sweet and I loved both the characters in it. And then Don't Call Me Daddy is actually Shuji's father's story. So we get a whole lot of history that we didn't really get in the first book. So Ryoji was left to raise his infant son on his own when baby was left on his doorstep, and he turns to his friend Hanoa. And Hanoa has had this huge crush on Ryuji for forever, but Ryoji is straight and Hanoa is gay, and eventually sort of the pressure of being in close quarters helping his best friend and his crush to raise a son together just becomes too much for Hanoa, and he leaves and he becomes quite a successful lawyer. Hanoa is the son of the old man who runs the convenience store next to the liquor store, and so he comes back to take care of his father, and so he reconnects with Ryuji and they begin to explore what happened between them, their history, and Ryuji has to decide whether or not he can be something more with Hanoa because he's never considered it before. These stories were great as well. I loved that they were standalones, but they were the interconnectedness with the characters. Was great. And then I read the first 3 volumes of LDK, which was another recommendation from Shae. The first 10 volumes of this are out on KU, so I'm planning on catching up on those. Both the hero and the heroine in these stories are in high school. The heroine lives in an apartment on her own, and she discovers that the most popular boy in school is moving in as her next door neighbor. When something happens in his apartment that is partially her fault, he ends up moving himself in with her in her apartment. It's very sweet, it's very fluffy, it's very easy to read. These read so quickly, and they're just, I talk about good palate cleansing books. These are good palate cleansing manga. They're just like candy for your brain. And I will definitely be reading whatever is on KU in this series because I just had a really delightful time. So that is the manga that I have read in the first part of this month. In the comments, I'd love to know if you are taking part in 30 and 30 and what you have been reading, or feel free to recommend me something that you think I might enjoy. And I'm hoping to at least hit the 30 mark. I don't know if I'll do more than that because I've got other things that I need to read this month as well, but I'm going to aim for 30. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a flame emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're on the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.